Anyway, we're gonna get started. Hi, my name is Diana Alfaro, as Carol mentioned, and in addition to all that, I am also a very proud vice chair of Housing Santa Cruz County, a new housing advocacy org that is a year old. And I just wanted to give a shout out to our chair of Housing Santa Cruz County, Don Lane, who is really the housing avenger throughout the county and is really making sure that we create more affordable and equitable community throughout Santa Cruz. And I will be starting with a brief presentation and then introducing our panelists. And we're going to be starting with Carolyn since she has to get off early. And if there's any time for questions for her, we will do that. But if not, we're going to go and jump in with Lee and Bonnie, who will be presenting about the city perspective. So with that, I'm going to get started. And May is Affordable Housing Month. So you can go to the Housing Santa Cruz County website and find more information there. So what is affordable housing? It is housing that is affordable to people who pay 30% of their income or less. So HUD, according to HUD, you shouldn't pay more than 30% of your income for rent or your mortgage or whatever. So that's how much you should pay for housing. As we know, people pay a lot more than that in the community, and we'll get into that data a little bit more. Affordable housing can be rental or home ownership. So these images that you see here, the top image there with the red is St. Stephen's Senior Housing. We had a program there a few years ago, and that is 40 units for seniors just outside the city limits of Santa Cruz in Live Oak. And then below is, I believe, it's homeownership units in Aptos. And I don't remember the name of that development, but those were about 20 homeownership units in the county of Santa Cruz. And inclusionary housing, you hear that term going around quite a bit. What is inclusionary housing? Well, it's a number of units set aside within a building that is deemed affordable at different affordable levels according to whatever jurisdiction that is in. Did want to add that you can have a master plan community that has certain parts, certain buildings that are deemed affordable. So for example, I worked on a development in the former Fort Ord, a master plan community with over 1,000 units, and 15% of the units that were supposed to be built are supposed to be affordable. So we have a building there that is 66 units that is completely affordable for people of 60% area median income and below. So what is area median income? AMI, another term that folks hear a lot. So HUD comes out with this methodology each year about what the median income, that person in the middle, if you were to line up every single person in the county of Santa Cruz, how much does that person in the middle make? And they use that to determine the eligibility to live in affordable housing. So if you are at 80% or less of median income, that means that is a low income individual, and anything above that is moderate or high income. And just to understand what 80% means, that is considered low income, 50% is defined as very low income, and 30%, which is not shown here, that is defined as extremely low income. So this is what this chart looks like this year. So 100% of area median income, so that person in the middle or that household in the middle is making that yellow line there. So $108,900 is 100% of area median income. And then the math is done to determine everything else below. I wanted to show 15% of area median income because that's usually Social Security income for a person. So for a senior or for a homeless individual. So they're not getting a lot of money, but I did want to show that for those purposes. And again, HUD comes out with this data on a yearly basis around this time of year. So April, May. And what does that mean in terms of jobs? So you know, what is California minimum wage right now? $15 an hour. So $15 an hour is $31,000 a year. So that is less than 30% of area median income in Santa Cruz County. So if you live in Santa Cruz and you're making minimum wage and work full time, you are extremely low income. So, but what does that mean for other essential services and jobs? So our firefighters, we know we desperately need firefighters. A couple of years ago, we had the CZU fires, and a lot of our personnel went up to North County to really help these fires, and they make $85,308. So they are low income individuals. Our firefighters are low income individuals. Our nurses are just above that. They're not low income, but they might as well be. And an associate Cabrillo faculty member, this is actually something that made me very depressed and very sad. So associate faculty, formerly known as adjunct faculty, they are capped at how many units they can teach. They can only teach about 67% of a regular faculty load on a single campus. And so the most they can make at Cabrillo is $47,000 a year. So that means they have to go to Monterey Peninsula College or Hartnell or San Jose City College to try to get more income. So that means they're adding a commute to their lives. And a fully credentialed teacher doesn't make a lot either. And when you put that, like when it comes to home ownership, because that's the goal, right? The American dream was to become a homeowner, right? Well, this is the cheapest house I can find on Zillow as of Monday of this week. And it was $1.1 million, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,600 square feet. A down payment for that is over $200,000. And if you were to get a mortgage, which assuming a 5% interest rate, but I read and look out a couple of days later that it's usually about 2.25%. It's almost $5,000 a month. So using the 30% limit that HUD has out there, they would need to make $188,000 a year, or 173% of area median income to afford that house, plus have 20% in the bank to buy this home. And as you know, a lot of people are paying cash now. So I don't know many firefighters or teachers or nurses that have this money in the bank right now. And in terms of rent, our average rent is about $2,500 a month. And according to this housing needs report by the California Housing Partnership, we need about 3.2 jobs to live in Santa Cruz County. And this is a very recent report that came out earlier this month. And so this No Place Like Home study that was done in 2014 is still very relevant. 70% of those who live in Santa Cruz County are experiencing a rent burden. The numbers may have grown by then. You know, 2016, it was a little bit more affordable to live here, not that much. And so it's mostly impacting people of color. So I definitely wanted to just set this stage for you so that our speakers can tell you about what are some things that are happening throughout the county and the city to help alleviate the rent burden and all the other issues that are happening in our community. Because as you know, we have teachers leaving, we have young families who can't afford to live here anymore, and it is definitely changing our city. So with that, here are our panelists today. And I'm going to start with Carolyn, do her intro, and then she can get started, and I'll do Lee and Bonnie's intro afterwards. So Carolyn graduated from UC Davis with a degree in civil engineering and has worked for the county of Santa Cruz for the past 20 years. The first 5 years there, she worked for Public Works in roadway operations and worked on a lot of infrastructure projects and development of the watershed-friendly road maintenance policies. She then moved on to the environmental planning section under the planning department in 2007, where she still was using the capacity of a civil engineer for projects in compliance with the resource protection policies, with a special focus on grading and geological hazards. And then she was then promoted to senior civil engineer, overseeing the environmental planning section, where she acted as department liaison for the county's Primo Pi process improvement onward permit improvement efforts, the real stretch there with the acronym, program, and was recently promoted to Assistant Director of the Department of Community Development and Infrastructure, which integrates both Public Works and the Planning Divisions. And she oversees the Unified Permit Center. And just a description about what the Unified Permit Center is, it's a single location for land use and development permits for subject matter experts from all the county reviewing agencies, Department of Public Works, Stormwater, Transportation, Sanitation, Zoning, Environmental Planning, and Environmental Health are co-located to provide customer-focused pre-application services and information. So in other words, she is a developer's best friend. So with that, go ahead, Carolyn.
Thank you so much, Diana. That was a wonderful introduction. I'm going to go ahead and start presenting. And let's just start from the beginning. Okay, am I good?
Yes,
Yeah?
it's showing.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for having me. Of course, my name is Carolyn Burke. I'm the Assistant Director of Community Development and Infrastructure. And we'll go over a little bit more about our efforts to combine the departments and offer the most comprehensive development services possible. And we'll also go over how we're addressing the affordable housing needs in the unincorporated areas of our county. So today we'll cover the existing and proposed policy updates related to housing, the operational improvements we're making as a department to make obtaining housing approvals more streamlined process, housing projects that are either in process or in the pipeline, and emerging issues and challenges faced by housing developers. So in process, we're going to talk in a little bit more detail about these subjects, but we have the sustainability update and code modernization that we've been has been almost a decade-long process, and it's finally coming to fruition. We'll also talk a little bit about our Tiny Homes on Wheels initiative, SB 9 implementation. We'll go over some completed projects, including workforce housing, density bonus, and BMR updates, and then how we're streamlining the ADU development process. So the sustainability policy and regulatory update is a comprehensive update to Santa Cruz County's general plan and local coastal program, and it modernizes county codes. It has new design guidelines and includes rezoning of key opportunity sites in urban areas. And the goal is really to implement new policies and regulations that support more sustainable communities. These documents will shape land use and transportation planning, as well as future housing and other development in Santa Cruz County for many years to come. You can go to our website for updates. We have a very user-friendly website there. And it includes the draft EIR that is currently, environmental impact report that is currently circulating for the sustainability updates. And you can view the changes to the general plan, code, design guidelines, all by subject. And really, all these changes include focused growth along key corridors and activity centers in the urban areas, continued protection of natural resources, layered transportation network programs, attainable housing policies and regulations, residential and workplace flex zone districts, a modernized permit structure, and land uses allowed on ag properties with preservation of ag land, with a spotlight on equity and environmental justice. We've held multiple public workshops, and now we'll be presenting the plan to the Planning Commission on May 25th, which is next Wednesday, with a study session where you'll hear more discussion on these topics, and hopefully you can all tune in for the Zoom meeting on that, and you can find that on the Planning Department website. So as far as ADUs go, they're obviously a hot topic and a great opportunity for another type of infill development. We recently went to the board on April 26th and renewed our ADU fee waiver program. It had been effective for units at or less than 640 square feet in size, and it was increased to 750 square feet, where you can enjoy fee waivers, and that program will continue until 2025. We're also launching a new technical assistance program for qualifying individuals who need a little extra support in getting a project like this off the ground for themselves. It can be overwhelming as a property owner to undertake any type of a construction project. So this kind of provides some additional technical services, and that'll be launching in the fall. We're also working on wrapping up a package of pre-approved ADU plans for homeowners that come in a variety of styles. The homeowner would still need to prepare site plan documents, but this at least provides them a little bit of a step ahead with getting the actual architectural plans and drawings that would be pre-approved by our building department. We're also considering ordinances for tiny homes on wheels. So tiny homes are homes of up to 400 square feet, and tiny homes on foundations are already allowed under our current ordinances. And now we're considering tiny home on wheels that would be a bit more accessible for home buyers or homeowners to implement, but they come with some complexities. Obviously, if you're on wheels, typically you're considered a vehicle. And so there are some things that we have to think about as we're considering an ordinance, including the number of these that would be allowed per parcel, the geographic location of these, development standards, home design, utilities, and permitting. We have taken this to the Planning Commission, and you can find recordings of the Planning Commission meeting where we kind of go over these in more detail on our website. We've also been working hard on the implementation of SB 9, which, as some of you may know, this law establishes a streamlined process to develop 2 primary residential dwelling units on 1 eligible single-family zoned parcel, and to split 1 eligible single-family zoned parcel into 2 separate parcels of approximately equal size. It provides more flexible property setbacks and parking standards, and extends subdivision approval expirations for eligible parcels. And because the process is deemed ministerial, it provides new opportunities for single-family zones that are in the census-defined urbanized area, and that's the 2020 census, but are not within the county urban services line. And many of those new parcels are in the San Lorenzo Valley or South County. Our website has a list of objective standards, and we also have an option for you can submit a screening application if you're interested in this option, to allow planners to review your parcel specific information and confirm eligibility before taking more steps on the SB 9 process. So please visit our website and you can check that out. So we also have some operational improvements. We have the Recovery Permit Center for folks rebuilding after the CZU fire. We have our Unified Permit Center initiative that Diana introduced you to, that we'll go over in a little more detail, and the merger of Planning and Public Works into the Community Development and Infrastructure Department. So our Recovery Permit Center was opened just a few short months after the CZU fire in 2020. And the RPC is staffed by augmented staff. We have hired a consultant, Four Leaf Incorporated, that has supported rebuilding in Paradise and Sonoma County and Napa County. And they really specialize in providing client-centered services They provide self-scheduled appointments for folks, as many appointments as you need to get the support you need for rebuilding. The Recovery Permit Center is tightly engaged with our new Office of Response, Recovery, and Resilience that was established after the CZU fires to help in just this way, as well as the long-term recovery group through Community Foundation Santa Cruz County. And, really everybody comes together to help rebuilders overcome the hurdles related to all areas of rebuilding, from rental assistance and mental health support to overcoming obstacles related to construction affordability and state and local code requirements. And it's really been successful in many ways in helping this trauma-informed community come together, and in a time where all of us in every different area of housing development are having issues, but for them, it really is time critical that they get back into their homes. So you can go to the website listed there, and you can also take a look at our recovery dashboard that shows our progress towards getting folks permitted and back into their homes. Currently, we have, as you know, there were 911 parcels affected by the CZU fire. There are 152 dwelling permits that are issued or in process, and another 136 that have been cleared for their building permit application. So when we look at the number of people that have contacted the Recovery Permit Center, about 600 parcels, individual parcels, have contacted the Recovery Permit Center, and almost 300 are in process or ready to be going into the building permit application process, which has been expedited. We have a 10 business day turnaround on your building permits for recovery permits. So we're encouraged by that, and we will continue evolving our responses to those rebuilding. As you know, the price of construction right now is prohibitively expensive, so we continue to support them at each turn. Operationally, we have undertaken the Unified Permit Center initiative. This was the concept first came up about a year ago with the Board of Supervisors, and really the focus is on having one location where folks can access timely and accurate information, get pre-development information and clearances so that they can have a more sure path to development. We've heard the desire to have more shortened plan checks for things like just upgrades and maintenance of your current property, and really provide customer service and public access to our permitting services. So the UPC, as we call it, it co-locates the county reviewing agencies for real-time information. And as Diana had mentioned, the county reviewing agencies include environmental health, public works, which is stormwater encroachments and transportation, zoning, environmental planning, and building. Our improvements include a physical remodel of the planning counter to the current planning counter to incorporate all these different divisions. And that's in the planning stages, and probably will be starting construction within the next 2 years, hopefully sooner, but it all depends on funding, of course. We have some new staff members coming online, as with many of our partners in other jurisdictions. We had, some shifting of staff take place after the pandemic. So as those new staff members come online, we'll be cross-training them across all disciplines to support a more informed and complete submittals coming in the door, which streamlines our process. We also have a pretty comprehensive website redesign that's in the works. We'll talk a little bit about our current affordable housing projects. This photo is of the groundbreaking ceremony that occurred this month at the Mid-Penn housing site at 1520 Capitola Road in Live Oak. 57 affordable apartments will be built in a mixed-use development with 2 new community health clinics on a commercial site that was acquired from the county's former redevelopment agency. And I see Diana's excitement. We all share in that excitement. So our current affordable housing projects include Capitola Road, which is currently under construction with a completion in late 2023. We have Pippin 2, phase 2, which is in Watsonville with they're breaking ground in June with completion in approximately 18 months. Rodeo Creek Court, which is a Habitat for Humanity project. It has 4 units built and sold already and 7 homes under construction. We also have Project Home Key projects, which is permanent supportive housing, including regular rental housing and supportive services, including case management for tenants if they need it. So far, only the Vets Village up in the San Lorenzo Valley has received a Home Key award. The others are awaiting news from HCD, but include 36 units in SoCal, 7 units in Santa Cruz, and 94 units in Watsonville. The Santa Cruz and Watsonville Home Key projects are located in cities, and the County Human Services Department agreed to submit home key applications on those cities' behalf at their request. And so we're happy to be able to provide that service for them. We also have another potential home key project in Freedom, possibly for round 3 of the home key awards. It would include transitional housing for 10 young adults and renovation of an existing residential care facility for youth, which had been decommissioned. And then we have, this is a list of all fully entitled density bonus projects in our current development pipeline. Most are in building plan check or set to begin construction soon, except for Pleasure Point Plaza, which is, they're trying to overcome some financing challenges. And this list does not include the recent 100% affordable projects, which also got density bonuses, which are the 17th and Capitola and Rodeo Creek Court projects, which were on the prior slide. So for future opportunities, you know, the adoption of our sustainability element is going to make some new parcels eligible for infill development. And the tiny home updates that we covered that will also provide some unique options and more affordable options for folks to be able to accommodate ADUs. We also have our housing element update, and I would welcome you to go to our website for more information on that. We have some additional projects in the pipeline, a Mid-Penn project at 578 Green Valley Road. We have East Cliff Village, the Lumber Yard, and others that are in due diligence and pre-development phases. We also have opportunities for CDBG disaster relief. So the owner-occupied rehab, we have 46 million potential dollars for owner-occupied rehab and home buyer assistance for CZU fire survivors only. And that would be for owners of the affected property and if that property is their primary residence. And then there's 43 million for rental projects that can be used anywhere in the county, including the cities. So there are a number of challenges, and some of these are familiar and some of these are emerging. Obviously, neighborhood opposition continues to be, you know, one of the primary issues with higher density projects. And state legislation is obviously attempting to deal with that on one front, and we continue to You know, try and educate the community. Weeks like this are important to let people know the needs in our community. We also have opposition in some regards with local coastal commission staff, which oppose the use of density bonuses in commercial and mixed use zones in the coastal zone. County staff does not agree with their interpretation, but it does cause conflicts, and it can take time to work those out. So also, there's a lack of stable funding for operations and developments financing. This is the loss of the redevelopment agency housing set aside. There's also extreme cost escalation and labor supply shortages for construction, labor, and materials, and land cost escalation, of course. The spike in interest rates for mortgages and construction financing also poses a challenge. And the large volume and frequency of housing and land use legislation coming from the state, as much as it takes down some barriers, it does pose challenges. From a staffing perspective, we need to constantly learn and implement new state laws, and it does take planning staff time away from processing applications and administering the housing programs and projects. And hopefully, as we get more familiar with these types of proposals, we'll be able to streamline that on our staff's end as well. That's definitely a priority for our new Unified Permit Center. And so, yeah, that covers what I have to present today. And I'm sorry that today I am time restricted. I would love to take questions, but I think we are pretty close to when I turn into a pumpkin. Ooh, yeah, we're we're a little beyond 10:30. So I appreciate your time, and please feel free to take a look at our website. Definitely look at our sustainability website and our vision for our new Santa Cruz County. And do contact us if you have any questions. Suzanne Issei is a wealth of knowledge, as any of you know who know her know. And please feel free to reach out. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Carolyn. And we do have a question, but we'll hold that and email you.
Okay, sounds.
So thank you for joining us today.
Absolutely, yes. And please do, if anyone contacts me, I will make sure you get to the right person. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay.
So moving on to the city of Santa Cruz, and we have two super awesome people joining us today. Our first is Lee Butler, who has over 21 years of experience in the public sector, working with cities of Santa Cruz, San Jose, Gilroy, and Santa Clara. And he has served as our planning director and community development specialist for the city of Santa Cruz since 2017. And for the past 18 months, he has also been overseeing the homelessness response work in the city. In his development roles, he has worked on a wide range of award-winning projects, such as the Envision San Jose 2040 General Plan, the Gilroy 2040 General Plan, and my favorite, the Santa Cruz Housing Voices and Housing Blueprint Project, which, by the way, was awesome. And he's worked on entitlements for many thousands of units. He has a bachelor's degree in environmental sciences from the University of Virginia, and he is a member of the American Institute of Certified Planners. Then we also have another super cool person, Bonnie Lipscomb, who in March 2022, she was named Person of the Year by the Santa Cruz Chamber of Commerce. So she's been awarded a super awesome person. Great. She is also the economic director for the city of Santa Cruz and the executive director of the successor agency, or the former redevelopment agency. She has been with the city of Santa Cruz since 2007 and has over 25 years of experience in economic development and community development, including over 20 years in local government working on public and private development development projects, most notably in Santa Cruz, the Warriors Arena, the Tannery Arts Project, the Monterey Bay National Sanctuary Exploration Center, and the Riverwalk Apartments. And coming soon, a whole bunch of other stuff. And Bonnie is a founding member of the Santa Cruz Works and the project for entrepreneurship with the University of California, Santa Cruz. Bonnie is also currently a board member for the Bay Area Development Company, a CDC licensed and regulated 504 lender. And she has an undergraduate degree from Tulane and a master's in environmental policy and administration from the University of Michigan. So with that, take it away. Lee, I think, is first.
All right, thanks so much, Diana. And thank you, Carol and Mike, for inviting us this morning. I'm gonna share my screen here and we will get going.
We see it.
All right, great. And you've got the presentation screen, not the notes one?
Yeah.
Yep, we got it.
Great. All right, thank you. All right, so all of the challenges that Carolyn was talking about and that Diana was talking about with the housing costs here, and one of the big implications of that is our, let's see, there we go, our homelessness numbers. And unfortunately, those costs have a direct implication on the ability of people to afford housing here. And a lot of those folks end up unhoused. And we have one of the highest per capita homelessness rates in the country. And that is a direct implication of our not just local ability to provide housing, but regionally and across the state. And you know, it's really a national problem, but it's felt really strongly here in our region. And how do we fix homelessness? Housing. So we're going to talk a lot about housing production, but Bonnie's going to set the stage a little bit with some of the local trends that are contributing to the significant costs.
Great, thanks, Lee. And just for all of you who are with us today, we are going to be kind of jumping back and forth during the presentation. So you already had some, and Diana did some great framing for this, so I'm not going to go through all these bullets, but I think a couple of things interesting to note. This is data through 2021. Going into 2022, we're actually now at 1.5 million for median sale price within the city of Santa Cruz. And notably, when you look specifically at the home prices, you look that during the pandemic, costs have risen dramatically. The same thing for rents, 20% jump from 2020 to 2021. And when you look now at the rising interest rates, you can expect those asking rents in Santa Cruz to be even higher. So those pressures, we've already been in a housing crisis, for well over a decade, some would say even more, and it's only getting worse. So the pressure and the desire to build affordable housing at all levels in our community is desperately needed and really felt by the city. And it's a real focus for us across departments. And this just further shows median wages relatively flat over the last 10 years in Santa Cruz. And Lee, I don't think we have time to talk through this, but this sort of goes back to some of the points made earlier, in that there is a lot of legislation at the state level, even trying to navigate it at the local government level. I mean, many of these we're extremely supportive of. There are some that are challenging. It takes time to get up to speed on these. So we do take advantage of many of these and in our community. Lee, you probably want to add to this, this
Sure.
commentary.
Yeah, thanks, Bonnie. I'll add a little bit, and I'll try to keep it brief because we can't talk about all these. But interestingly, this is the 2021 list, and we've got a similar one here from 2022 for things working their way through the legislative cycle right now. And if you go back probably 7 years or so, this list is going to be much more condensed. And over the last 5, 6, maybe 7, but a decade ago, the number of housing bills coming through the legislation was substantially less than what we have now. So on that's actually a really great thing. On the state level, the state is recognizing the need to streamline housing and promote affordable housing. So I was going to touch on a few things that have happened over the last 5 to 7 years. and have significantly shifted the landscape. One, density bonus law has changed substantially. So what density bonus is if you're providing a certain percentage of affordable housing at different income levels, you can actually get more market rate units in your project than you would otherwise be allowed. And so that's allowed for, in large part, the result in Santa Cruz has been deeper levels of affordability than we otherwise would have achieved with projects. The Housing Accountability Act has had some really substantial updates in the past 5 years or so, in large part to reduce cities and counties' abilities to deny projects, to deny housing projects that meet applicable standards. They also have updated their replacement housing requirements. And so there's been a lot of work that the state's been doing in that regard. And then there have been a range of streamlining bills. AB 2162 allows for 100% affordable housing projects with 25% supportive housing to move through a expedited ministerial process. So no discretion involved, that does not have a CEQA review. And a number of the projects that Bonnie and I will be talking about coming up here are actually utilizing AB 2162 to streamline their entitlements. And then SB 35 has come along. It's also a streamlining effort. We've seen one of those projects in the city of Santa Cruz, and we're at a 50% level. So projects that have 50% affordable housing, they're able to take advantage of the SB 35 streamlining. So those are just a few. Obviously, we didn't go through all of these, and some of them have bigger implications and smaller implications, but that's a sampling of some of the big ones. All right, I'm going to talk to you about a few of the things that we've got in the works right now. First off, all the cities and counties in our region, and Santa Cruz and Monterey counties, are embarking on our housing element update. And our respective housing element updates, I should say. Within the city of Santa Cruz, we are needing to plan for between the years of the 8-year cycle. So between 2024 and 2031, we're going to be planning for 3,736 units. And there are some changes between this housing element cycle and previous ones. In particular, a focus on affirmatively furthering fair housing, looking at segregation issues, assessing fair housing practices, examining the relationship of available sites to areas of high opportunity, and advancing fair housing principles. So our sites inventory will be overhauled to show that we're not only able to accommodate the 3,736 units in our plans, but also that that's done in an inclusive and a manner that's affirmatively furthering fair housing. Let's see. This is a comparison of, in the blue, I'll use this. In the blue, the current RHNA goals. And then this is what we have for 2024 to 2032. It's increased 5 times. And we've done a great job. You can see here, these are the units that we've produced in the last 7 years in the green. And we've met our RHNA totals in all but the very low income category. And we are pretty confident that within the next year and a half, we are going to meet our RHNA goals in every single income category. So that is a really, really great accomplishment. That's been something that all of our teams have had a lot of work in doing, and the private sector and nonprofit sector as well. Diana, your team has been a part of that, and many others. I hope and I want in 8 years to be able to stand in front of you and say the same thing for that next cycle. But we have some really, really significant goals. If you look at this, we're around 180 or so very low income units, versus here we've got 850 very low income units that we need to plan for. So we've got a lot of work ahead of us, but we're all up for the challenge, and we hope to partner with a lot of different groups to get there. So what are some of the things that we're doing? We've got our objective standards process that will clarify, here's what's needed. Here are the design standards that if you are meeting these, you are expected to be able to move forward in an expeditious manner. And those will also help ensure that we've got a really great design aesthetic for new development that's coming through. We recently updated, well, recently, it's almost been 5 years now. Back in late 2017 and early 2018, we increased the heights in the downtown area south of Cathcart and north of Laurel Street. And it went up to Soquel here along the river. And these height increases, you can see from 50 feet in some areas to 85 feet. Those spurred a substantial amount of development, and we're going to talk about some of those development projects momentarily. Another thing that we've got going on, a further expansion of our downtown plan area to the south. You can see we expanded heights in this area, and this project is looking at expanding heights south of Laurel down to along Front Street to the roundabout. And you can see here in the different scenarios, we're actually planning for a big chunk of our next RENA cycle growth to be able to be accommodated in this south of Laurel area. But as we're thinking about this, we need to remember that buildings last for 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 plus years. And so we're really thinking about this. Yes, we've got a lot of development that's needed for this next cycle, but these buildings will last for 10 plus RENA cycles. And when we're seeing that go up 5 times, those numbers go up 5 times as much between 8 years ago and now, I'm expecting the state's going to continue to increase those requirements for us. So we're looking at really taking advantage of that really sustainable place to grow in close proximity to jobs and housing.
Hey, Lee, just
Yes.
On the last slide, one thing I'd like to add is as we look at this planning area that we're studying right now at the city, and when you look at that chart on the right, and something that Carolyn said earlier, I really want to emphasize is the challenge that we have as a community, as a city, as an unincorporated county, is getting community support for density in some of our commercial corridors. And when you look at those RENA numbers and you saw that dramatic increase, it's 5 times the amount of very low, to extremely low income units that we need to build in this next RENA cycle. We're not going to be able to meet those goals unless we're able to get some increased height and build in some of these areas that we're studying and changing the zoning to support density in some of our urban core areas. So I just want to highlight that because that is one of the challenges and one of the things we're trying to do to accommodate and meet those affordable housing goals for our community.
Thanks, Bonnie. And one other thing I'll point out, as great a job as we've done over the last 7 years of producing housing, you can see over the last 7 years, we've produced, that puts us at about 1,200 housing units. We're going to need to more than triple that rate over the coming 8 years in order to meet those RENA goals. And I'll just mention the Warriors Arena here while we're focused on housing. One of the benefits and one of the things that we're looking at doing as part of this project is finding a permanent home for the Santa Cruz Warriors as part of this project as well. So let's jump into some of the projects and things that we've got going on. Right now, from preliminary review through construction, we have about 813 deed-restricted affordable housing units that are in the pipeline. About 224 of those are permanent supportive housing units. And we have over 2,300 units in process. So let's jump right in. We're gonna talk a little bit about this. Bonnie, anything that you wanted to point out about this other than here's a lot of the stuff that we've got going on in the downtown, because we're going to talk about a number of these projects specifically.
Yeah, I want to just take a second and talk about, these are numbered projects that are in our main downtown core and the proposed downtown expansion area. And Lee's specifically going to touch on 5, 6, 7, and 8. I'm going to touch on 1, 2, and 3, and 4. We'll probably both go back and forth a little bit between these. But the point I want to make, I was making on the earlier slide, we do have a lot of community opposition, very healthy engagement to building multifamily housing in Santa Cruz. Where we have been the most successful has been in our downtown core. And so it's also an opportunity because we own a number of surface parking lots in the downtown. So some of the projects you're going to hear about and see today are projects that we've been able to really take advantage of city-owned parking lots. We've been able to assemble additional adjacencies and build projects. And so we'll go into that, but I really need to point out on some of our other commercial corridors, you're going to see a concentration on our downtown because that is where we've been able to be most effective in building affordable housing. And as we look at this new proposed downtown expansion, the challenge we have as Santa Cruz, where we're so built out, is that there are fewer and fewer opportunities. So when we talk a little bit later about future opportunities, you'll see where we're focusing and how we're trying to assemble the parcels necessary to do significant multifamily for the next RENA cycle.
Great, thanks, Bonnie. Let's jump into the projects. So the first one here is 428 Front Street. This is the east side of Front Street across from the Metro Center. And this is going to have 175 total units, 20 of which are affordable, 15 at very low income, at 5 at low income. It has ground floor commercial. This is the first project that is going to really change how we interact with the river. And for years, you know, that river levee looking towards the downtown, that's all the backs of buildings. It's kind of no man's land back there. So this elevation that you're seeing here is along Front Street, but on that back end of these buildings, the river levee is going to be extended out to that second level of these buildings. And these paseos, these 2 paseos that will provide access up to the Riverwalk, will be lined with active uses. And then along the river levee, there'll be outdoor seating and some commercial that wraps around with restaurants and so forth. So the character of how we interact with the river is really going to change from sort of an afterthought to a celebration. And this is something that's going to be really exciting as that stretch between Soquel and Laurel starts to redevelop. Another project that's right adjacent to that one is, this is the southeast corner of Soquel and Front Street. This is 530 Front, and this has about 276 units, with about 37 of those being affordable. And this is where you can see how the river is really going to be engaged and enlivened and celebrated, as opposed to how we've experienced that over the past 60 plus years. This project here is under construction. This is looking at where the Taco Bell used to be. This has 205 market rate units. The inclusionary requirements for this, the project met their inclusionary requirements by dedicating land to the city, adjacent land to the city. And we are about to begin construction on one of those projects, but I will let Bonnie talk about that. And again, this has a ground floor commercial, and it spans between Pacific, Laurel, and then Front Street on the backside. Pacific here, front on the backside there, and Laurel here. And Bonnie, you're muted, Bonnie.
Thanks, Lee. I just want to take a second and talk about something that's a little bit distinct. As Diana mentioned earlier, we're the former redevelopment agency, and some of you may know that redevelopment agencies, a part of their responsibility and objectives are to build affordable housing in the community. So even though redevelopment was terminated in 2012, that desire and interest in our community has not gone away. And we've been able to continue to develop properties, doing public-private partnerships with developers in our community. And we're going to talk about a few of those today. Some of the advantages of doing that is that we can really leverage city-owned land. We did a specific RFP for all of our city sort of parking lots in the downtown to really assess which ones are most suitable for affordable housing development. And I'll go through those today. One of the other things we can take advantage of is that we can really participate and leverage our affordable housing funds. So just in the last year alone, for the 3 projects that we're going to talk about, we've been able to secure through grants and HCD grant matches over 62 million in affordable housing funds to build these projects. So there are some real benefits of having the city be a co-developer on projects. And I would say one of the other major benefits is that we can actually really target and focus on delivering those units at that very low and extremely low income levels for our arena categories. And so each of the 3 projects that the city's involved in, we're really getting at some of those hardest projects to build. They're the most expensive projects to build that meet our arena goals for very low and extremely low. And so the first project is Pacific Station. And because of that land dedication that Lee mentioned earlier on the Pacific Front Laurel, what we also call the Anton Development Project, we were able to secure this corner of Pack Station South that you see at the bottom of the screen. We then went forward and negotiated a sale from the Seaside Company to assemble the back part. That's where Project Per was. And to assemble a site, a half-acre site, which is sort of the ideal minimum site you need to really create affordable, a sizable and financially feasible affordable housing project. And so with that, we decided to go ahead and create 2 projects. So Pack Station South and Pack Station North. Pack Station South is a 70-unit, very low and extremely low project that broke ground just 2 days ago. And so we had a great groundbreaking event. It includes 2 partners similar to the Midpen project. It includes 2 partners, Santa Cruz Community Health Center and Dientis, who are going to have a medical clinic and dental services serving the downtown Lower Beach Flat and Ocean area, providing low-cost medical and dental care and are much needed in our community. It's within a few blocks, a block and a half of our transit. And then we have part of these grants, we have 20 million of that 62 million that's specifically dedicated to some of the infrastructure and public benefit supports for these projects. So we're creating, as part of our downtown plan, a major paseo and connection to our Riverwalk and some improvements for some of our residents. Next slide. This is the area so that you can see it. It includes the Metro Center. And to the far right, you can see that is Pacific Station South is a smaller footprint. I'm going to talk a little bit about Pack Station North and what we're doing. And definitely some of the folks on this call, Don Lane, Mike Rock, and former mayors and city council members have been instrumental in actually moving these projects forward to where we are today. Okay, here's a good image of the slide. So this is the project on the far right, Pack Station South, the 70-unit, very low, extremely low project that we broke ground on 2 days ago. The project on the left is Pack Station North, which includes a new Metro Center, transit center bus station for the Metro. And then we're creating this new ground level retail along Pacific Avenue with office and housing above that. And that's a 94-unit, very low and extremely low affordable mixed use affordable housing project. Here you can see the Paseo next to Pack Station South. Next slide. I know we have, and here you can see Pacific Station North, which will also include office retail, have some solar panels on top of the Metro, the Maple Paseo, as I mentioned, that connects up to the Riverwalk, and a green roof. One of the things that we've really been able to take advantage of are some of the sustainability grants that are out there. We have both an EPIC Challenge grant to provide all electric in Pack Station North, as well as on the Library Mixed Use Project, our downtown affordable project I'll talk about in a second.
And I'll just note for Pack South and Pack North, we've utilized AB 2162 for streamlining on those.
Yeah, and so in mentioning that, that means that a quarter, so 25%, roughly 41 units of both Pack Station South and Pack Station North will include permanent supportive housing for those in our community who are desperately in need of housing.
That's really great. Thanks, Bonnie.
And then this just shows you some of the extra features on the sustainability level for Pack Station North. Again, the Paseo. Some of the landscape features. And these are all funded through our infill and infrastructure grant that we received and our Affordable Housing Sustainable Communities grant. So this is part of the 20 million in grant funds specifically for the infrastructure improvements. Next slide. And then finally, want to just mention, this is our downtown library affordable housing project that has been in the works since a little before 2016 when the Measure S funding was approved by the voters, and this project was approved numerous times by our city council. It currently includes, this is the latest draft design, but we do have a library master architect, and we have we're right now in schematic design phase. And so we're entering design development phase. So the design elements are still subject to change a little bit, but we do have currently, and this is pretty solid, is a 38,000 square foot library, a 3,400 square foot roof deck. We're right now at 124 units of very low and extremely low housing in the project. We're also including a 2,000 square foot childcare facility that includes open space, and then roughly 245 to 310 vehicular parking spaces. And it's actually closer to 280 at this point, secured and bicycle parking spaces that's included in the parking component of the project. Next slide. This is one of the benefits of doing a mixed use project is that we can leverage funding. We have foundation, shared foundation costs, utility costs, our soft costs, which is all that pre-development costs are shared across the library, across affordable housing, which allows us to get more library and better public amenities for the housing and for the entire project. So this just shows how expansive the new public library component is going to be and is a real amenity for the affordable housing in the project. Next slide. This is the layout of the rooftop deck. This is what the top of the library looks like. And so the area on the lower right-hand side shows the roof deck that you see on what's on the left-hand side labeled as the library patio in the corner. Shows the green roof on top of the library and what so many of the housing units, the 124 housing units, will look out on from their 5 levels of affordable housing. I also want to show on the next slide the landscape plan for the actual roof deck. So in addition to having what is an amenity that most affordable housing projects wouldn't have by having these combined mixed uses, is in addition to the library roof deck, we also have all of these public spaces that you can see labeled in the number spaces. So we have a tot lot, a teen courtyard with shuffleboard and ping pong tables. We have raised vegetable beds and flower beds. We have numerous community gathering spaces. Those are just some of the amazing amenities that we've been able to include in this project. Next slide. And again, the sustainability. This is going to be a zero net energy building. It's going to be all electric. You can see both on top of the library with the green roof and the solar energy, both on the library and the housing. We've also designed the parking levels so that in the future they could be convertible to other uses. Next slide. And then finally, we're sort of sharing this one. We've been working, this is also another 2162 project. This is 65 units, 25% is permanent supportive housing. And it does include on the left-hand side of the project, another Paseo that connects in our downtown plan, thankfully, that Cathcart corridor that will go along Cathcart and connect with our other Paseo up into the Riverwalk. And that is actually, as part of the public-private element of this, that is city-owned land that's enabling that Paseo. So we really partnered with the developer to maximize that benefit for what those public amenities feel like for this project. And then we've also worked with the developer to make sure, as this project faces the downtown library affordable housing project I just showed you, that's across the street, to really having an active street front with that 3,400 square feet of commercial and retail with the housing above and behind. And I'll turn it back to you, Lee.
Great, thanks, Bonnie. I'm going to go through quickly because we've got a lot of fairly large projects that are happening in the city. I'm going to go through them quickly, and we're happy to go back and answer questions at the end, and then we'll wrap up with one other planning process that we are embarking on shortly. So let's jump right in. Down by the roundabout, across from Depot Park, we have 130 Center. This was approved, and actually this week they submitted building permits. So we're excited that they're moving forward with that quickly. This is 233 single room occupancy units, with 35 of them being affordable at 50% of the area median income. So low, very low income there. And then some ground floor commercial as well. Nearby, across from the Dream Inn, this project is in process. It is with the Coastal Commission right now, but the city has approved 89 condos, and 8 of those at 50% AMI, 2 of them at 80% AMI, and ground floor commercial as well. Moving over to Coral Street, this is the northwest corner of Highway 1 and Highway 9. We have entitled a 120 unit permanent supportive housing project. And that's 100% affordable, except for the manager's units. And that they are seeking no place like home funding, and they may seek Project Home Key funding. They're looking at how they're going to get that together. They have submitted building permits, but I don't expect that they'll pull building permits until they get some of those grant opportunities lined up. 314 Jesse Street. Diana, you're familiar with this one. You want to present this one? We've got 50 total units that are in the works here, except for all affordable except for 2 managers units. And this is all 100% supportive housing. There are 14 or so units that are there now. Diana, is that right?
Yeah, we have 14 existing units, and we're going to redevelop it into 50. 35 of the units will be for homeless individuals, and the other units will be for those returning to the community.
So great. Thank you for your work on that, Diana. We're really excited about that project.
Yeah.
We just approved in the last month or so 20 affordable units. This is a housing authority owned property at 415 Natural Bridges, right at the tracks there. I put this one in there not because it's in the works, but because it was recently completed, and we want to celebrate those recent successes as well. This was a long time in the works. This is at 350 Ocean Street, and it is 100% affordable project minus the 1 manager's unit. So 62 affordable units here, and ground floor commercial. 908 Ocean Street is in the works right now. They are about to start work on their environmental impact report. 390 small ownership units, or likely shifting to our new flexible density unit type, and 78 of those approximately will be affordable. 831 Water Street, we mentioned the SB 35 project application. Depending on how they do that project, that will have between 55 and 82 affordable units, and that has 141 units in total. 515 Soquel is a recent application that has 43 units, with 7 of them as affordable. And then we've got a handful of other projects in the works that are adding up to our 800 plus units of affordable housing that we've got in the works. And one quick thing that I'll point to, and Bonnie can talk about one other opportunity site in this area before we close, but we are looking at doing a master plan for the Coral Street area, the area highlighted in yellow here. Really, we want to get our nonprofit service providers and the city and county stakeholders together to really understand what are the key needs for services, and how are we going to really best look at our investments and the phasing of our investments out there as we seek to maximize the homeless services options that we have out here, as well as permanent supportive housing options. And we showed the 120 permanent supportive housing units. that project is right here. And we'll give one more opportunity that Bonnie can speak to.
Actually, Lee, if you could go back to the last one for just a second. I just wanted to mention, this is another really good example of a public-private partnership, because we have multi-layered ownership on this Coral Street campus. You know, we have city ownership, we have private ownership, and we just acquired at the city the 125 Coral Street that is on the left-hand side of the screen. That's really enabling this master planning process, along with the property, which I think the Housing Matters has a first right of refusal on the Polar Automotive across the street. So it's really looking at how can we leverage and assemble sites, which is a real challenge in our community being built out, to sizably be able to plan for significant affordable housing going forward. And that leads to the next slide, which is what you see above you. Is many of you are familiar, and Marty Ackerman, who's on this call, is very familiar with the Tannery Arts Campus. And this is one of the last projects that we funded. We're still funding elements of it, but we funded the affordable housing piece when we still were very active in redevelopment. It's an 8.3 acre campus. We have 100 units of affordable housing that we finished in 2009. But this is also a major opportunity for us that we've been working really hard on. Marty's also been involved on the city side of helping to acquire the Central Home Supply site, which is during the opportunity that we had with some of the highway improvements at Highway 1 and 9, we were able to acquire that Central Home Supply site. We have done a lease back for them for 2 years, but we now own those 2 areas in orange, in addition to what we own that's in green above. So if we're able to acquire, and we've been regularly meeting with Caltrans owns that purple swath right in the center. Altogether, if we could acquire that Caltrans piece, we own it on 3 other sides. We could have a close to 4 acre site for a future mixed use affordable housing project. It's one of our biggest opportunities, best opportunities to do an amazing gateway project in our community. So anyone out there who wants to give us some support and help navigating the complicated process with Caltrans, we do have support by Senator Laird and his office coordinating, but it is one of the challenges that we have is really assembling sites for meaningful affordable housing projects. But with 4 acres, we can really do something amazing. So that's a site for the future that we're working on. And the more support we can have for dedicated funding streams locally to be able to both support our nonprofit affordable housing partners and being able to cover permit fees, which is a major role that the city can play for Mid-Penn, Eden, for all of them, as well as being able to assemble sites so that we can partner with affordable housing developers to create more housing going forward. Thanks, Lee.
Thank you, Bonnie. And that concludes our presentation.
Great, thank you so much. So we do have a few questions, and I hope y'all are willing to stay for an extra 7 minutes. Our first question is from Cindy. She actually has a few, but we'll start with one. What is the plan for the vast land on the west side adjacent to Panetta Avenue?
So on the west side adjacent to Panetta, so first off, that whole area there within, that's been experiencing some new development has plans approved actually for hundreds of residential dwelling units, as well as hundreds of thousands of square feet of commercial and industrial space. And so there are still some really significant development opportunities just within that portion of the area. To the west of that, we have job production land. So those are industrially zoned and have industrial general plan designations. And it is really critical for us, while we're talking about housing here, the preservation of employment lands is one of the few things that's equally as important, if not more important, than the provision of housing. We need jobs here, both from an environmental sustainability perspective, as well as a fiscally sustainability perspective. So the city actually ends up often spending more money on residential development over time versus employment actually keeps the value and provides revenue to the city. So that revenue is then able to go back towards affordable housing and towards things like social services. But the preservation of those industrial lands also allows us to have people walking and biking and using active transportation to get to the jobs. So that is a really critical component. There may be some opportunities to look at projects similar to how the Panetta area was developed with a mix, but that preservation of employment capacity is really key for the long-term the long-term prosperity of the city as a whole. And it also has social and health benefits, right? If someone doesn't have to drive a long way to their job, they're able to volunteer in the community and coach their kids' soccer team, and they've got time to go out to eat at night. And so there's a lot that goes into having a good mix of employment and housing in a city. So that's what we currently have planned for that area. And there are some areas west of Antonelli Pond, for example, that are currently planned for both residential and a small amount of commercial. I think 10 to 20% of that area is planned for commercial, with most of it as residential. So there is a mix already out there. And there is also a focus on job production.
Great, thank you. So the next question that Cindy had and that Jim has are related to UCSC expansion plans and the thousands of additional new students that are proposed to show up. And so how are we working with UCSC, and how, would the demand for rentals from UCSC students impact the rentals that are coming up?
So a couple of things related to that. I think we all know that right now the existing demand from students affects rentals, right? That's a fact of life right now, with thousands of students living off campus. The university has they're pursuing and they've actually adopted a new long-range development plan that would provide an ability for them to increase student capacity from about 19,500 to around 29,000 or so, round numbers, about 10,000 additional students. They have indicated that they want to provide on-campus housing for all of those new students. And the city has actually challenged some of that work and so we're actually in a lawsuit with the university right now because we want a firm commitment that they will provide that housing before they increase the number of students that are on campus. So yeah, we're working together on that.
Yeah. And to add to that, for affordable units, so there are some very strict guidelines of who can live in affordable units that is provided by our lenders, whether it's the state or the tax credit program. So it's actually really hard for a student to live into a tax credit or HCD funded unit. So just FYI, those affordable units will be for workers and in living in Santa Cruz County.
And I would just add that some of the units and some of the projects that are proposed that may end up being good fits for some of the students aren't considered affordable. They're more affordable by design. They're very small units. For example, the project on Center Street, which isn't considered an affordable project, likely will provide some additional housing, and as a rental will be available for students. It's not part of our affordable housing numbers though. So there's that opportunity as well. I do see in the chat, there's a question about, affordability and what will Santa Cruz look like in per capita with all the affordable units once they're built. I will say currently, without the next RHNA numbers, which are, 4 to 5 times what our current, regional housing needs assessment requirement is, we already have 14% of the units in Santa Cruz are affordable. It's going to be interesting to see when the RHNA numbers are completely finalized for other communities, how other communities are successful as well in meeting their affordable numbers by category. So we're 14% now affordable within the city. I would say when you compare that to many other cities, we're doing extremely well. But we also know that the need here in Santa Cruz is also so much larger than many other cities because it is so expensive to live here. So time will tell how we do. I think with the projects in the pipeline, we'll probably be doing better than other communities would be my guess. But it's still not enough for what is needed for our current housing crisis.
And then the last question that we'll take is from Laura Lee, and that's how does someone get on the list for housing? And is there one coordinated list? And two, what are the guiding design guidelines in the city? So let's start with the design guidelines one. And I think Lee, you can speak to that a bit.
Sure, I'll speak to that briefly. So right now we have a series of standards in our applicable documents. So our zoning ordinance has heights and setbacks and so forth. But some of our specific plans, like our downtown plan, have some really specific design criteria that needs to be met. But I want to bring us back to outside of those areas, the objective design standards for multifamily housing, that process is coming to a conclusion soon. We're bringing information to the Planning Commission in June with those draft standards, and then they'll hopefully be ready for the council by August. Mm-hmm. And so I'd encourage you to take a look at those. Those will identify how the building designs will be shaped for the areas outside of our specific plans where we don't have as many design standards. And so that will really affect the aesthetic of our community. And I encourage you all to take a look at those. They're really comprehensive and detailed. And if you have questions or comments on those, please convey those to us as we're bringing those forward to the hearing bodies in the next few months.
And then
could I ask a question as well? I didn't put it in the chat. But...
Oh, I just want to answer the first question that
sure, of course.
Laura Lee had, which was how does someone get on the list? And Bonnie, I'm hoping you can.
Yeah, so we have a great website. I should have had a slide to show that. It's called choosesantacruz.com. Our housing division is economic development and housing is our department. And the housing division maintains an incredible website of tenant-based resources for renters in Santa Cruz. Thank you, Diana. And if you click on that link and look at the affordable housing resources page, you'll see also a link to low-income rental units in Santa Cruz County. It actually, if you click on that, it takes you to the Housing Authority page, which is also a great resource. And you can actually click on and get on the wait list for many of these projects. So that's like the first stop if you're interested in getting on wait lists or finding out what's available in our county. The other would be if there's individual projects you're interested in. Generally, they all have their own websites. And Diana, you can talk about that as well. And you can go directly and get on the wait list for those.
Yeah, and there is legislation also coming up that will consolidate into one large wait list of people for housing. So that's currently being looked at. Because right now, if you were to try to get into one of our mid-pen units throughout Santa Cruz County, you would have to call each property individually. Really sucks, but that's the current process because each of them has its own ownership entity and process. So with that, Mike, you have the last question.
So clearly, this is an urbanization of our downtown. There's no hiding from that. In order to meet our housing needs and not put double the density in our residential neighborhoods, which we're not doing, it's got to go somewhere. And we're building these urban things. I know when we were rebuilding Pacific Avenue, people were concerned at the height of these new buildings. We're going to like make downtown feel like a canyon and so forth. And as it turns out, the design criteria that were attached to the building on Pacific Avenue is such that I think people will honestly say if you sit on Pacific Avenue at one of the outdoor restaurants or at a table or just walk down the sidewalk, it doesn't give you that feeling. That there's design requirements that step back the buildings in a way so you don't feel that you're caught in a bunch of canyons between huge buildings. And I'm wondering to what extent the projects you've talked about today, many of them downtown along in the downtown area, are they also being built with those kinds of considerations in mind? so that even though we're going to be, again, there's no stepping back from the fact that it's not going to look like a little sleepy town that we used to be. It's going to be a lot more urban than it was, but will it be built in a way that makes people still feel that they're comfortably walking in a small community and not, in the canyons of Wall Street or something?
Yeah, Lee, it's a question for you, but I'm going to jump in since we have 3 of those projects. And Lee, you mentioned the downtown design guidelines. Those include everything that all the projects in the downtown are following currently. So it includes articulation of the building, so it doesn't seem like a solid mass if you're on the street, so that you feel dwarfed. There's setback requirements as well. So if you're standing on, you see the commercial retail, that 18 to 20 foot, ground level. And then there's stepping back and articulation, so it doesn't feel like a solid massive building. So we're very sensitive to how does this integrate into the urban core, and you see that in each of our projects. So if you look at both Pacific Station North and South, you're going to see that, as well as the Downtown Library Affordable Housing Project. You see a lot of the articulation that goes in and out with different areas. You see step back so that there's it's not a fully shaded. If you're underneath it, you can really get the sun and the sunlight. So those are important elements for all of our projects.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would just add, thank you, Bonnie. Are you seeing the 428 Front Street project here?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the paseos are really one way that we're not only providing access, but also breaking up some of that massing. And you can see the different building elements here that, there's spacing between some of these elements so that it isn't just a continuous building wall. And where there are these continuous building walls, there's changes in the plane here. So you can see a change in the depth here. This is something that's going to be really important as we're embarking on the downtown plan expansion to the south, is making sure that we've got those standards that really address the pedestrian experience. From a distance, those taller buildings are really viewed and visible. But when you're on the street, it's those first few floors that really make up the pedestrian experience. And the higher up you go, that isn't as much of your experience on the ground if you've got some of these other elements, the step backs, the breaks in the buildings, the street trees that don't provide that direct line of sight to the upper ends of the buildings and so forth. So it's really a puzzle where we fit all of these design elements together to try to create a great aesthetic, both from on the ground at the pedestrian level, but also from a distance, if you're looking at it at the downtown, say, from across the river.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. And thank you all for coming today. We really appreciate that you gave us your time this Saturday, beautiful Saturday morning, to spend it with us. And just wanted to let you know that this recording will be available on the DWC website shortly, and you can find it on YouTube. So please share this information with all of your friends and your networks. It's also still Affordable Housing Month, and next week we do have some more events. We're also going to be getting an update from every jurisdiction on Wednesday, so you can learn what's happening in other cities and about what's going on there with their housing. And so with that, I want to thank our speakers, and Lee and Bonnie, who are still here, and Carolyn, who had to leave earlier. And I am, as person who's speaking with my age demographic, I am very much looking forward to the Santa Cruz that is going to happen soon, and I can't wait. So thank you.
Thank you all.
Yeah, I'm going to end the call for all. Thanks again for everybody's participation.
Thank you.
Thanks.